what I think the Stanford Sea Island Field School means to students, and I think an invitation to this program. It is that you learn a number of things that will be useful across disciplines. You learn various kinds of interview practices and strategies, how to analyze data, how to present that material back to people who may or may not be experts. You learn how to speak with an authority that comes out of your critical engagement with a research problem or topic. Cultural anthropologists tend to work by themselves, and so this project was one of trying to open up and break out and think about how to do anthropology collaboratively. And working with undergraduate students is particularly exciting because in many instances this is a new field for them. So it's really compelling for researchers who've done work for a number of years to think about the questions that people coming into something new might ask and offer. They bring a new perspective.
The Stanford Sea Island Field School is run out of the Stanford Anthropology Department under the directorship of Professor Paula Ebron. For 4 years now, we have been taking Stanford undergrad students to South Carolina to go with us for a month. We select 3 first or second year undergrad students from a pool of applicants. The students that are selected receive funds through the Vice Provost for Undergraduate Education to come along with us at no cost to South Carolina in the summer.
I was really excited by the fact that this was open to freshmen who had never done any sort of research before whatsoever, and it was going to take us directly to the field, directly to the production of anthropology.
So part of our program is to introduce multiple ways to do an ethnographic project, one beginning with the archival sources, oral histories and interviews, doing mapping using GIS. There's a small segment on archaeology where students do a little bit of digging and also learn something about historical architecture. It's multifaceted. For 2 weeks, the students follow the more senior people of the team, and that includes Claudia and the graduate assistant and myself, learning what it is that we do by following us, by shadowing us. But during this time, they're also gathering ideas for what they will want to pursue the second 2 weeks, in which they are left somewhat more on their own to develop a project that will culminate in a presentation at the end of our time in South Carolina at the Avery Research Center for African American History, which collaborates with us in pulling together this field school project. We do participant observation. Students go to interviews. They meet people who are very critical to the area that we're in.
I was really nervous for the first couple of interviews that I did, so being able to get over that with a lot of support was invaluable. Like, I don't know how I would have done it if I had been on my own, and also just being able to get constant feedback on the questions I was trying to ask and what worked and what didn't work. I was able to learn quite quickly. Each interview I knew more than I did the interview before.
In the evening, they talk about what the day has been and develop field notes and understand what the purpose of field notes are.
Evenings of the field school, we would workshop, and this would be a reflective and interactive process which built upon itself in a way that I think really accelerated learning.
The way that we had structured the entire project was not only going about doing the research, but doing these check-ins at the end of every evening. We were doing workshops with the students. The whole purpose of these workshops was to not only debrief and decompress after some very long days, but also to give them a sense as to how you go about building on each of these experiences, right? How do you go about incorporating them into the fieldwork, but also how do you go about using them as springboards for future inquiries?
The Stanford Sea Island Field School is, I would say, a very intense experience for all of us. Because as a student, you're being taken from virtually not knowing anything or knowing very little about the area, about anthropology, about ethnography, to presenting an academic paper in front of a public audience.
It's like a very unique experience of spending that much time in a small group, like focused on an academic project, and running from like freshman undergrad to graduate student to professors. It's hard to imagine like how I would have been able to like build up a feasible project without having some sense of what interviewing and observing and figuring out what your question is and then tailoring it in the field without having that previous experience. So, yeah.
The Sea Island Field School has brought me to a new level through the fact that I was learning so intensely. And for such a small period of time, my perspective was changed so completely.